So the next few chapters are going to be arm bars from the top, offensive mode. I purposefully did the bottom side arm bars, no gi, so you can see that even without the friction and the grips of the gi, you can control your opponent very easily. The top side is easier because you already, when you're on top, you're sort of controlling your opponent to a large extent. The other thing I want to point out is I don't really care gi or no gi. My personal philosophy is I like to wear the gi in the winter because it's cold and no gi in the summer when it's hot. But I use universal grips. So for example, we were talking about grips pretty much in all the chapters. It's a very, very important point of arm barring. As we talked about in one of the earlier chapters, I'd rather control the posture than the arm. If I control the arm, I'd rather control the arm with the armpit grip rather than a grip on the sleeve. So let's just look at a very, very short introduction. Let's look at this. So if I'm controlling the arm with the grips, he can still move. Now, if I use the armpit grip, look how strong it is. Try to pull out. Of course, I'm going to use my hands, but I find controlling your opponent with the armpit grip and controlling the arm with the armpit grip is extremely important. It's very underutilized in the world of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and there's a lot of arm bars that you can hit with the armpit grip, and it's very, very tight. So stay tuned, and we're going to go over that in the next couple of chapters. So, for lack of a better term, I call this diagonal arm bar. Just so you understand, this arm bar specifically is not very practical. I would not attempt it if I was in an MMA fight or self-defense. So, logical question is, Fox, why do you teach it? I'll tell you why I teach it. This arm bar is so intricate that if you get good at this arm bar, it's going to help your arm barring in every other position. And the reason for that is because we're playing with the four major concepts. The grip, I'm using an underarm pit grip, okay? Second, angle. It's a very oddball angle. It's a 45-degree diagonal arm bar, 45-degree. 3, fulcrum is going to be your inner thigh. And 4, you have to learn a follow-up because if you screw this up, he's coming on top. So we're going to go through all those 4 concepts in this one arm bar. Like I said, I hit this on high-level guys while we're training. I would not do this in an MMA or self-defense scenario. Let's look at it how we do this. So anytime I pass the guard, I always try to isolate this arm, okay? Now, a lot of people, when they pass the guard, they sit out because they're looking at their opponent. It's like, see what I've done? I passed your guard. They like to look the guy in the eyes. No, you don't sit out here because it's so easy for him to escape. You sit out briefly. Yeah, I'm not going to let you do that, but I got to fight back. But when you sit out like this, you do this temporarily. You keep your head down and you scissor your legs to isolate the arm. Once the arm is isolated, I'm going to scissor back and square up to my training partner. Now, notice how I isolated the arm. So you can see where I'm going with this. When I'm going with a guy, I want to make sure my knee slides up at the very least the level of his head. This is not going to work. All right? So you have to slide up high, at least the level of his head. I'm about 2 inches, 3 inches above. Now, what I'm going to, at this point, the guy on the bottom does not feel a lot of danger. He cannot easily retract his arm, but he feels very little danger. Now, very important movement is I windshield wiper my leg. I bring it in. Don't try to do this when your leg is sort of square to him, perpendicular. You line up with him. And the other thing, we're going to be talking about this, same side arm bars. You need to have space. You need to have about this much space between his torso and you. Don't try to jam it under his shoulder. This is not going to work. Interestingly enough, you need to be kind of loose. All right? So, as I'm deciding to go for this, I'll post on his shoulder. My elbow serves as a bit of an underhook. I post on his shoulder. I lean, windshield wiper my legs, and then just lay on my side. Bring my leg over. Tap. You have very strong arm bar. I'm not even laying down. But can you see how much space there is? So let's look at it again. We keep talking about the 4 basic things that you got to remember every time you're arm barring someone. Angle. Look at the angle. 45 degrees roughly. Okay? Look at the grip. It's the armpit grip. Can you pull out? It's not going to happen. If he tries to pull out, guys, this arm lock is going to kick on a lot harder. Fulcrum. The fulcrum is my inner thigh. We talk about it a lot. I use it a lot. This is probably the most useful fulcrum for your arm barring improvement. And then follow up. What happens if I screw this up? As he's coming up, I'm going to control his hand. As he's coming up, I have got to get my leg inside. And we triangle the daylights out of him. So you can see this arm bar is an oddball arm bar. Yes, I agree with it. But if you play with this, it will help your arm barring technique in all the other positions tremendously. Let's look at it one more time from a different angle. All right, so again, I'm isolating the arm. Once my knee is above his head, all right, so I'm about this much, you need to make sure that this is where you want your knee, at least. Down here, that's a mistake. That's not going to work. It might work, but we want a high percentage. Second, I want to make sure there's enough space. All right, then I start to windshield wiper my left leg back. And as I'm sitting down, I'm just laying on my side. This feels, for me, it's like nothing. It's smooth. But Federica, it's extreme pain.
Tap, tap.
Now, and the follow-up, so hold on one second. Don't make me put it on. So guys, again, we talk about angle, grip. So angle is 45 degrees roughly in this case. All right, the grip is armpit grip, which is very, very strong grip. Fulcrum, my inner thigh, and follow. So again, if we screw this up, I'm already looking to control his hand, and he comes straight into a very strong triangle. I'm gonna do it facing my back to the camera, so you can see the leg movement on this. All right, so again, say if I pass the guard and his elbow is in, I can always get it and isolate the arm. So I can always slide my leg. Now, my leg is already slid up high enough. I'm gonna post on his shoulder to make sure he doesn't come up. And then I just bring, guys, do this gently, because if you lock up well, this is extremely painful. All right, let's do one more time. One more angle. So I'm isolating, and here we go.
Tap.
So don't forget the key points, guys. The angle, 45 degrees, diagonal arm bar. You can call it whatever you want. Grip, it's the armpit grip, guys. Again, it's not always available. Sometimes you don't start out with the armpit grip, but you eventually get there. You can transition to the armpit grip. Sometimes there are spots where you should not use the armpit grip, but you can use it in a lot of different scenarios for arm bar. So this is at one of those ones where you can teach yourself how to hold on to the arm, literally between nothing than armpit grip and the fulcrum being in the inner thigh. And the follow-up, if he comes up, as he's coming up, he's usually, when somebody starts to come up towards you from that position, before they get their knees underneath, they're already triangled. So that as they're coming up very stretched out and flat, which means that when that triangle comes on, they're not in position to defend it at all. First, they need to get their knees underneath their torso, then they can defend it. Let's look at it one more time, please.
Tap.
Come on. So look, stop. Look how flat he is. So I have plenty of time to apply my triangle. Now he can defend. By that, it's way too late. So in the previous section, we looked at same side arm bar, calling it diagonal arm bar. So we're sort of isolating, in this case, Enrique's right arm and his arm is on my left. Now we're going to look at what happens if his arm is on the other side of my body. Understand that one of the reasons I like these arm bars is because you don't have to move. In a later chapter, we will go over arm bar if I go to the opposite side. But that involves pretty big movement on my part. This involves very little movement. I stay where I am. So one of the reasons I like these arm bars on the same side is because all I do is just isolate the arm and I'm ready to go. This one in particular is very, very good. When you hit it on somebody, this is a very surprising arm bar, and you can hit it on a lot of high-level guys because they don't expect it, all right? So what it involves is he puts his arm sort of towards my hip. Now you might ask, why would he do that? I can set it up that he does this. Let's look at a scenario where the guy just has his frame set up from bottom side control, and I'm going to make him pop his right arm to the right side of my hip. All right? So Enrique has side control. As I start to move north-south, look, he just did what I wanted him to do. Why did he do that? The reason for that is because he thinks he's going to be busting out the back way. But as soon as he does, I start to change. Let's turn around. One thing, when I make him pop his arm out, I flare out my left elbow to make sure that I don't get rolled. So again, he has a good frame. I'm going to switch my arms from the traditional sort of top across side, just reversing my arms, and I turn. And now I'm ready to go. So this time I'm going to bring my knees in. All right? So stop. Look at the space. There are two big mistakes people make when they do this arm bar. One is they bring their right leg, which is going to be fulcrum, too close to your opponent's body. That's mistake number one. Second one is they hold on to this arm with their hands. What do you think happens when you grab somebody's arm with your hands? They're going to fight to take it back. So I don't worry about this. Don't worry. The hand will be there. You're going to control it. His whole arm is going to be here. You're going to control it with this leg. All right? So as I get to the position that I want, ideally, I'm going to try to swim inside. All right? So I want this inside. You don't have to. Sometimes you can actually make it look like it's attacking the far side arm. He's not worried about his right arm at all. I'm going to windshield wiper my legs again, bring my head to his hips. Notice how much space there is between my shin and his torso. I think it's 10 inches. This is key. If you bring your shin close to him, this will not work. He will jump your leg. He will escape. So I want to make sure it feels very loose. I windshield wiper my legs. I step over and fall back. Look at this. This is tremendous braking power here. Okay? If you want, you can hold on to the sleeve. You can hold on to the far side wrist. All I do is, so I want people don't understand where the fulcrum is. They try to arch into it. The arch is not going to get it done. What I need to do is move my torso towards his feet, and my right leg moves in the opposite direction. You can see how Enrique is arching to try to escape the pain. This arm bar is very surprising. That's number one. And two, very, very powerful. So let's look at it in a smoother fashion, how all the pieces fit together, and then we're going to break it down again into smaller parts. So he has a good frame, top cross side. I flare out my elbow. So I flare out. If my elbow is really tight, he might try to buck me. So I flare out my elbow, drive up, and here we go. Tap. Very, very strong. Notice where my foot goes. Goes by his shoulder. But my shin, when I first start out, is going to be this far. All right, so let's turn around to make sure that we see all the different angles. So again, I'm going to switch my arms. His arm pops out. I'm going to bring my chest stays on him the whole time. I'm going to step over and start to sit. Look how much room there is. No problem. If you'd like, you can hold on to the wrist. You can hold on to the sleeve. It's up to you. Understand that once I'm here, I don't need to hold on to this. Once I'm here, try to hitchhike escape. Not going to happen. Not even close. Yeah. So I need to just keep him here that split second. Okay? Let's look at it one more time. So. And that's done. One of my favorites. One thing, we always have a backup plan. So in this particular case, when I go for the same side armbar, okay, I'm going for the armbar when his right arm is close to my right hip because he's thinking he's going to come out the back way. I always want to have a backup plan because there's always a chance that maybe you may have made a mistake. If it's a really big mistake, then chances are you're going to lose position. But if it's a slight mistake or he times you, then you need to have a backup plan, a follow-up, okay? So in this particular case, again, as I go for this, and the biggest mistake you can make is to not have enough space. Or as soon as he feels that it's coming on, he starts to try to jump over. So what I do, it's very simple. Don't try to insist on this. All you do is just kick this, go ahead, kick this leg back and bring it back down. Side control, and then you can hit him with something else. Different plan this time. So you understand that even if I fail and he starts to come up, all I do is just kick the leg that was over his head. I kick it back and I just drive off my legs and bring him back down. Now we're going to talk about the far side armbar. I'm going to attack Enrique's left arm, starting with my body on his right side. First, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the traditional way that a lot of people do. And then I'm going to do it my way and try to explain why some of those changes or why some of those differences result in a better execution. Okay? So, yeah, this is the traditional way. So I isolate the far side arm. I drag him to his side. I come around and sit. This is my way. So there's a couple of differences in the setup, in the entry. All right, the first one is, you lay down for me, please. A lot of guys, when they get in this position, they try to bring him to them, but this is too much space. He can try to use, I may have to go to guillotine, but he can use that to exaggerate your movement, and now he's struggling to stay on top. So instead of doing that, I'm controlling Enrique's head. I grab his tricep and my forearm goes across his stomach. So you start to misalign his body. Look what happened. So right now he's kind of flat. I want him perpendicular to the floor. I want his body perpendicular to the floor. Now watch what happens when I remove my left hand from blocking his head. He'll do the work for you. My chest is just stopping him from turning too far. So he will do that work for you if you pressure enough. Yeah, he will do it. I just put my chest where his shoulder is to make sure he doesn't go too far. That's it. Now I'm ready to move. Okay? So that's very, very important. Don't forget, I put a lot of weight into my right forearm. This is very unpleasant. Not for me, for Enrique. As I let it slip, he will turn to his side. Now, I'm going to put my ear on his hip. and get a good base. So his arm now is trapped, not just with my hand, my right hand, it's trapped by my torso. It's very important that when you armbarring people, we talked about it in some of the Nogi's sections, you use one hand to set things up. Very rarely will you use both hands. My left hand is now available for me to post next to his hip, and then I slide in. I don't pop up. I don't do this. There's too big an opening. A lot of people do it like this, guys. It's not wrong, but when you pop up, there's a big opening. You got somebody strong and savvy, they're gonna retract their elbow. You don't want that. So when I'm here, I slide it. Again, big gap between my left leg, and Enrique's torso. The reason for that is as he's laying down, then his body's gonna be in the right position. If you go too close, he's gonna lay on your leg, and now you don't have the ability to finish him. So again, I wanna have enough. All right, so initially I use the forearm grip on this, but I'm ready to switch into the joystick immediately. We will go over that shortly because there's a lot of movement. He has hitchhiker escape, probably the most common escape. So I need to be able to change the angle very quickly. That's why I start out with forearm grip, and I'm ready to change it very, very quickly into joystick grip. So let's look at it from a different angle. I'm gonna stay on the same side. All right. So when I'm top of cross side, I swim my right hand into his elbow. It literally, the movement is like he's swimming. So I keep my chest on Enrique the whole time. The only thing is I bring my chest closer to his head, swim, and then I move back. And at the same time, I'm putting a lot of weight into my right forearm, which is across his ribs, lower ribs, where his sternum is, all right? And I'm controlling his head, so this is very unpleasant. As soon as I remove this, he goes sideways. Now, put my hand on the floor, and then I step over, continue to hold it with my torso, and slide in, and forearm grip, ready to switch into joystick grip. It's that fast. Okay? Let's look at it from a different angle. Slightly speed it up now. One of the critical points of this, you want to fall perpendicular to him. Enrique's escape, and this is the reason why I'm ready to switch into joystick grip. Again, guys, I use the same grip, gi or no gi, it doesn't matter. It's a universal grip. So if you don't fall 90 degrees to him, not perpendicular, I'm giving him half the escape already. This is going to be hard to escape. But if you fall, he now is halfway into his escape. I don't want to give it to him. You can always switch into the armpit grip if you need to. Okay? So again, when you drill this, drill 90 degrees. So your body should be 90 degrees to his, perpendicular. Very important. One more time. And that's it. He's done. So now we're going to go over the far side armbar follow-ups. There's two basic escapes that people use. One is hitchhiker escape, they spin out. The other one is they lock up their arms. So we're going to go over both of them. All right, so first one is hitchhiker escape. This is hitchhiker escape. Don't worry, we will stop him. The other one is lockup. he locks up his hands and tries to just hold out. And maybe try to get his right arm underneath your leg and escape this way. We will address both of those. So probably the most common one is the hitchhiker escape. So you have to recognize certain triggers in their escape. The first counter to him escaping is going to be switching to joystick grip, because it changes the angle dramatically. It changes the fulcrum from my hips to my inner thigh. And I can literally stop a guy pretty far into their escape, just changing my grip and the fulcrum. And you'll see that it's a very small adjustment on my part. So as I'm changing, tap, tap. So I can stop him all the way to this position. Just, if I try to apply pressure straight through my hips, he'd escape. Not just that, but he's going to be on top of cross side. But me, so going from the forearm grip to changing to my left inner thigh, tap. You can catch your opponent pretty far into their escape. One of the critical points here, guys, is make sure you pressure your left leg in. You don't want to be pushing against that inner thigh. That's your fulcrum. So you want to have it as firm as possible. You don't want to be kind of pressing and your leg is moving away. No, my left leg is moving in the opposite direction of his wrist. I'm pushing my wrist to my left, my leg to my right. Tap. Okay? So this is very, very fast and effective way to stop somebody pretty far into their escape. But that's the reason why I change the grip from forearm grip to joystick grip. Let's look at it differently. That's tap. Look how far we can stop him. So this is one of perfect examples illustrating how useful the joystick grip can be relative to the other grips. Most people use the joystick grip almost for any armbar. That is not appropriate. In this case, I start out with a forearm grip, but I switch into joystick grip because, again, my transition, he's making big movements. My transition is very simple and effective and efficient. So you have to recognize certain triggers. Once he moves roughly his body perpendicular to the floor, when he gets on his side, that's a trigger that you might have started that joystick grip transition too late, and you will probably not stop him. When that happens, we need to switch into omoplata. Okay? So roughly when he gets here, this is a trigger. People think they're going to hold on to the arm. When he comes up on top, that they're going to triangle him. But a good guy is going to hold on to your leg. That will not happen. That will happen against a very inexperienced guy. But against an experienced guy, you will not have a follow-up. You waited too long. You did not switch. So, down from here again. So, when he gets perpendicular to the floor, roughly on his side, you have to switch. And it's a very easy switch. All I do is bring my right leg over his arm. And literally he will land in omoplata. So. That's it. You can see it's a very natural flow. Anybody could do this. You just need to make sure your timing is right. You have to realize that when he gets basically on his side, you are losing the joystick grip against the inner thigh armbar, and you switch to omoplata. It works like a charm. All right? It's natural. Just remember, it's the right leg. All right? And if there's a lot of momentum on his part, it's even easier. As I'm going for this, right leg. That's it. That's it. Congratulations, you escaped the armbar. Congratulations to me. Now he's on omoplata. I preserve my momentum, and I tap, preserve my submission. So again, the follow-up on a failed armbar is, first, is switch the joystick grip. Second is to bring the leg over, and he's on omoplata, and he continues to be under either threat or submission, follow-up submission. Okay, very important. Let's talk about one more thing here. When I go for the far side arm lock, and I know, guys, I'm using arm lock and arm bar interchangeably, so to me, it means the same thing. I'm sure you could find some sort of technical difference, but arm bar and arm lock in the world of jiu-jitsu tends to be used almost interchangeably. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the far side, and I, generally speaking, want to have my right leg not under his armpit. But it doesn't matter. We will talk about the reason for that. So as I'm going around, spinning, this gives me the angle that I want. Now, if my right leg got trapped under his armpit, you could see now the angle is not as good for the armbar, right? Because now I'm not 90 degrees. I'm 45 roughly. But it's okay because I'm trading a little bit of less efficiency on the armbar. But if he does come up, I just pull him in and he goes straight into an inverted triangle. So I don't try for my right foot placement. I basically almost let him choose which way it's going to go. So if your foot gets trapped under his armpit, the armbar is not going to be as effective or as efficient, but you also have a beautiful follow-up with an inverted triangle. He almost literally falls into it. So as I go around, I don't fight to try to put it either over his arm or it's whatever he gives me, I take. So as it's strapped, so I can still armbar, but my angle is not as good. I can stop him, yeah. But as he's come, I just pull. So that's a good follow-up. So don't fret whether your foot is caught under his armpit or it's not. It doesn't matter. You're trading one thing for another. We're still with countering his defense against the far side armbar. This time, the opponent decides to lock up. Okay? There's a variety of ways they can lock up, so we're going to go with a couple of scenarios. So, as I'm going around, I slide in, and he decides to lock up. First thing, when I see this, I grab his far arm. Because now he decided to hold out rather than defend and escape. He wants to hold out. What people usually hope to do is wait for you to get frustrated and start to pull, and at the right moment explode out. We're not going to let that happen. So first thing, I reach for the far side arm and make sure I reinforce where he is. Now I lean towards his head, so my left foot comes out and I can connect it. This is one of the examples, again, where it's okay to cross, not quite okay, but actually advisable to cross your ankles. You don't necessarily have to, but when you cross your ankles, it's very hard for him to retract his right elbow, and my hip's preventing the retraction with his left elbow. Okay? Do not regrip. Do not do this. Anytime you regrip, there's an opportunity for your opponent to escape. So do not regrip. You have your grip. This is a good grip. Stay with it. Now notice how my knee is flared out. If my knees are close together, your opponent can sit up. Sit up. Okay? So right now, I'm most interested in keeping him where he is. Down. So he decided on the way he's going to defend. No-gi, I would usually anchor my hand, my right hand, on my thigh. With the gi, you can grab your own lapel. It does not really matter. Now, a lot of times you could look at it like a Rubik's Cube and say, okay, what are the weak spots here? Right now, it's going to be very difficult for your opponent to escape. He's waiting for the right time. And the right time comes when you start to make movements and start to create a little bit of holes, and then he'll pick the right moment. I don't do that. I just basically look at his hands. And for example, you could see how his right hand and right wrist are pressed against my chest. Why not make it worse? Did you see what I just did? I cowhanded, I wrist locked him. I don't usually aim for that. Usually I just do that so he lets go. I go to the wrist, lay down towards his head, and now square up, and it's done. So when you wind up in this position, look at how his arms are tangled up, and what's the best way to escape? What's the best way to submit him? All right, and open up his arms. So let's look at this scenario again. So I'm going to stay on the same side, so you have a good view from the camera. So as I'm going around, he decides to lock up. First order of business, control the forearm. So he stays where he is. Lean to the head, so your left foot can come out, and lock up with the right foot. Keep your knees wide open, because right now I'm interested in keeping him where he is until I break down this puzzle. So again, he's susceptible to the wrist lock. I just pull with my left hand, push with my chest. A lot of times people will let go immediately. When that happens, do not pull at his elbow. This is where you're very weak. This is what people do. You're not going to get anywhere. Always go to the wrist. So as he's letting go, I want to fall to my right side, but I don't want to stay there. I want to circle back up. So I square up to him 90 degrees. I want a forearm grip, guys, very, very strong, and arch. So this is kind of the traditional arm barring where I'm using my hips as fulcrum and forearm grip. This is probably what you see most often. And this is the right way, or probably the best way in this particular scenario. Once I isolated his arm, I bring my thighs together and arch. So I no longer have them flexed. Now I don't care if he comes up. He's on board. Now sometimes you look at it and the puzzle of his arm entanglement is very vexing to you, and you feel like you can't unravel it so you can isolate the arm and finish him. In this case, what we're going to use is a bolt cutter. It's very, very strong. When I teach seminars, I usually show it on, I look around, whoever it looks like they got the biggest muscles, that's the guy I'm going to use it on. So what we do is, again, same entry, and Enrique locked up, very strong. Yeah. So again, I decide, same thing. I want to make sure I reinforce the far side arm to make sure now he cannot spin out anymore. He cannot spin out. He cannot go back to hitchhiker escape. This will prevent him from doing that. All right. You can grab the sleeve, but again, I like to grab by the elbow. It's universal. You can do it gi, no gi. It's exactly the same way. Lean to his head, bring your left leg over, and splay your knees. Open your knees. Now, what I'm going to do first thing is move my right arm to his wrist. When you're arm barring somebody from here, when you're at the elbow, I'm just holding him where he is. Very difficult to finish somebody that's strong at the elbow. I have to go to the wrist. The second thing that I want to do is I want to make sure my chest moves his forearm. So his forearm is no longer perpendicular to my chest, but rather is lined up with my chest. All right? So right now his forearm is lined up with my chest. This is what I'm looking for. This is where people fail the most often. They say, Fox, I can't get my arm over. Yeah, neither can I right now. I have to use my body to bring his elbow closer to my leg, and now his forearm is lined up with my chest. Once I'm here, my left elbow is going to come over, and no fingers, guys. I'm just going to connect to bolt cutter grip. This is very, very strong. Right now, what I'm doing is I'm bringing my right forearm towards me and my left forearm away from me. So it's sort of like this movement, like you're cutting a wire with your forearms. And you will see how this is, some guys already tap here. And then knees together and finish. So we will go over this again, guys. This is I learned this a long time ago from Enzo, long time ago. And it's very effective against a strong guy. So you don't have to move. You don't have to keep yanking at his elbow. What you do is you put him in the bolt cutter. Again, this is the movement I'm making. Right forearm going away from. So this is the movement. All right. So again, up cross side. Slide back in. Now, again, I reinforce to make sure he basically stays where he is, because now I'm going to pick him apart. I lean to his head so my left foot can come out, and we cross our ankles and open our knees to make sure he stays. He's locked up, even if he has his elbow. Don't do this. This will not work. Bring your chest forward and push. So his elbow towards his hip. So now I want his forearm, instead of being perpendicular, to be lined up with my chest. All right? Now I switch my grip, because until now, I just want to keep him where he is. Now bring it to his wrist, and I bring my left elbow over and clasp my hands. Notice you want to have your wrist straight. Okay, you don't want to be doing one of these. Wrist straight. Now I'm pulling with my right and pushing with my left. This is very strong, guys. Sometimes people tap here. You don't be afraid to tap. This is what I want, but now I can lay back down and finish. You don't have to hold out till your arm breaks. It's okay. I just want to. When Enrique was holding, it was so tight. I know he wanted me to finish the technique because he thought where I was going with it. But you could see you could tap people literally before their arm is fully extended. That's how strong it is.